I'm Officer Jake Turner, and this one still makes my skin crawl. Though, to be honest, I've learned to chalk up a lot of strange calls to the midnight shift playing tricks on your mind. But this wasn't your run-of-the-mill radio static or my own fatigue talking. No, sir. That night felt different. It was near 00:05 hours, and I'd just wrapped up the tail end of a paperwork backlog. Because, of course, they decide to hit you with traffic citations and incident reports when you're already running 2 hours behind. I eased my cruiser, Unit 7 Alpha 3, onto the southbound lane of Highway 47, an old 2-lane byway lined by dense pines and worn-out mile markers. Visibility was low, fog settling in like spilled milk across the asphalt. I'd barely cruised a mile when I heard it, a deliberate, rhythmic tapping on the roof of my car. Tap, 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 pa-tup, and no sirens, no flashing lights in my rear view, just that tapping. My first thought, some local kid playing prank. But when you've been on patrol this long, you stop assuming mischief and start considering everything as a potential threat. I glanced at my dash cam. Just as routine. Hell, they make you turn it on the second you unlock the doors. But the video feed was pure night. No taxi-cab-style hovering glow from street lamps, just my headlights slicing through the murk. I slowed to a stop under an old wooden sign that read, "Welcome to Henderson County," though the paint was so faded you'd almost miss the county part. I killed the engine. Silence. Then, tap, tap, tap. I sat there for a beat longer, hands on the steering wheel. My heart sank into that small of my back like a weight. Uncanny. Why? Because the tapping wasn't random. It wasn't rapid-fire hailstorms of hail. No, this was almost conversational. Pause. Tap. Pause. Tap. A slow Morse code of menace. I grabbed my tactical flashlight, mag light, 2-cell, heavy enough to bruise a skull, and slowly opened the driver's door. The cold air hit me like a bucket of ice water. I swung the beam up to my roof. Empty, not a branch scratching down from overhead. No package, nothing. "Who's there?" I called out. My voice sounded small, clipped, a hollow echo between the trees. No answer. Instead, the tapping came again, this time from the passenger side. My brain zipped through scenarios. A wounded animal? Could be. Deer hoof on the hood? Possible. Yet, I'd just checked my side view mirror. No four-legged silhouette scuttling away. I slid out of the car, radio clipped to my belt, hand hovering near my holster. I circled to the passenger side. Tap, tap. The noise was coming from the roof just above me. I aimed the flashlight upward, and for one heartbeat, thought I saw something shift behind the branches. A figure? No, that'd be crazy. It was raining. Mist, really, and everything was flickering in and out of focus. Then, silence. I shone the beam around. The grainy beam lit up nothing. The road stretched empty. My own cruiser sat dormant, doors locked, just like I'd left it. No footprints in the damp gravel shoulder, no sign of an animal or a person. The woods on either side were the same inhuman greenish-gray. My breath curled in the beam of my flashlight. Shaken, I radioed dispatch. "Unit 7 Alpha 3, I'm going to need a second set of eyes down here. Possible prank or something else." Dispatch crackled back with the usual. "Copy that. 30-second ETA." Fine. Backup was on its way. I climbed back into the cruiser and locked all doors. Sat there, engine idling, listening. The tapping came again, this time from the trunk. My stomach nodded. We've all had that moment when your training kicks in a half-second too late. You think, "I've got this," but then something makes you realize, "Nope, not this time." I grabbed my radio mic. Dispatch, then paused because simultaneously headlights appeared in the rearview mirror. One set, low beam, rolling closer. It stopped about 50 yards behind me. The driver didn't flash lights, didn't get out. My palms got sweaty. I cracked my window just enough to speak into the mic. Dispatch, disregard previous. I have a civilian or unknown vehicle behind me. No headlights, license plate unreadable. ETA, static. Then, 2 minutes. 2 minutes, standing still felt like splintering eternity. The trunk tapping resumed. Tap, tap. I couldn't see the trunk from my seat, but I could feel it. My cruiser vibrated subtly, like something heavy shifting on the other side of the metal. I gripped my mag light, just in case, slid out of the car again. Step by step toward the trunk. The headlights behind me stayed silent. I reached the trunk latch. My heartbeat thumped against my ribs like a caged beast. I breathed in, pulled the latch. The trunk lid wound up, and I saw nothing. Empty trunk. Police evidence kit safe inside. I'd locked it moments ago. No footprints around the bumper, no sign of someone having been there. I stood frozen. Fog danced in the headlights behind me, and then my radio crackled again, but it wasn't dispatch. It was a voice, low, gravelly, coming through my own radio. Voice, VO, through radio. "You're not alone, Jake." I nearly dropped the mag light. My chest seized. I backpedaled, flashlight sweeping. Nothing. No officer, no backseat passenger. The road, the dark, the one car's hush. My backup's headlights. 2 cruisers this time, cut through the fog, tires crunching gravel. They rolled up, engines off, officers stepping out. I told them they searched. They checked the roof, the trunk, the roadside. Nothing. No branch, no vandal, no wildlife, no messages, radio logs, dash cam, body cams, nothing. And yet, I'd heard the whisper in my ear, felt the taps, sensed someone knowing my name. I left that stretch of Highway 47 at dawn. I filed the report, marked it unresolved. No evidence, no suspects. Just that midnight tapping, intimate and unnerving, like someone drumming their impatience on your mind. Still, something tells me that night wasn't a prank, or a trick of the light, and I keep one eye on the rearview mirror, always, because out there, on those endless rural roads, someone's waiting, listening, and they know my name. The sun was barely up when I realized my heart was still racing. My hands shook as I peeled off my gloves, shoved them into my pocket, and tried to swallow the lump in my throat. Duty calls, they say, right? But after last night's, whatever it was, I felt like I'd swallowed a freight train of nerves. By mid-morning, I was back at Henderson County PD, coffee in hand, trying to look normal, while my partner, Officer Lopez, gave me the side-eye. She knew me too well. "Rough night?" she asked, voice low. Not nosy, just tuned in. "Just paperwork," I replied, down in a sip of dark roast. My hand brushed over the radio clipped to my belt, the one that spat out that voice. "Sure," she said, eyebrow raised. "You look like you wrestled a rabid raccoon." I chuckled, but it felt hollow. I shrugged. "Probably just fatigue." She nodded, but didn't press. Good partner, they let you save face. We clocked out for lunch together. Burgers at the diner down the street, where locals nattered about deer season and school board drama. Normal chatter. But in the back of my mind, my cruiser sat parked out on the highway, still under investigation. Back on shift, that unease settled in my bones. The midday calm, sunlight, kids playing in yards, only made the thought of that dark road worse. I checked the case file. Midnight tapping, unknown vehicle, voice on radio, filed under unsolved. I scribbled notes. No physical evidence, witness, self, possible break-in. Psychological stress. I closed the file. Maybe I needed to see the scene again. Maybe retrace my steps. So I called dispatch. "This is Turner. I'm heading back to the scene. Permission to conduct follow-up?" "Copy that. Drive safe," came the calm reply. I jumped into Unit 7 Alpha 3, eyes scanning the dashboard. All cameras were intact, batteries fine, no signs of tampering. I punched in the coordinates, back to mile marker 12 on Highway 47, 36-mile round trip, give or take. The drive was quiet, too quiet. No other cruisers passed, no civilian traffic, just me and that stretch of road that felt haunted. As I neared the spot, the trees formed an arch over the asphalt, like the world was pressing in. The fog had cleared, but the air still tasted moist, endless. I parked under the same creaking wooden sign, engine off. I triple-checked my mag light, radio, sidearm. This time I climbed onto the hood, boots thudding on steel, and tapped the roof in a slow rhythm. Tap, pause, tap, silence. Then I heard it faintly, a tiny echo at first. Tap, tap, tap. Could have sworn it matched my knock. Match or respond. My pulse spiked. I jumped down, heart banging. I circled the cruiser, listening. I tapped the passenger door. Nothing. I tapped the trunk. Nothing. Still, that tapping. From all around, like the night itself was breathing. I dropped to my knees on the gravel shoulder, inspecting the underside of the car. Stones lodged in treads. Malware won't fit here, just dirt and pebbles. No scratches, no tape, no hidden speaker. I ran my finger along the metal. Cold, solid, unremarkable. I backed up, wiping dust from my knees. Took a deep breath. I had one trick left. I switched on my body cam, hit record, and yelled loudly, "If you're out here, make your presence known." Silence. Then the tapping, right behind me. I whirled around. Fog was rolling in again, thin veil across the road. I pointed my flashlight. Nothing but trees, mile marker, my cruiser. I clicked off my torch, relying on moonlight. That's when I heard a soft voice, barely a whisper, from the tree line. "Why are you?" My blood froze. The words trailed off. I shined my beam into the woods. Branches quivered, but no form emerged. I clicked on my radio. "Dispatch, I need backup, again." Then static, and that voice, clearer, voice. VO, through radio. "You shouldn't have come back." My skin crawled so hard I thought I'd shed it. I snapped off the radio, cursed, and sprinted to my cruiser. I hit the unlock, dove in, slammed the door. Engine roared to life. I peeled out, tires spinning on gravel, fog swirling around headlights. As I sped away, I stole a glance in the rear-view mirror. The tree line was still, quiet. But for a fraction of a second I saw a shape, a sliver of something dark, standing between two pines, arms crossed, watching me go. I didn't slow until I hit town limits. Downtown Henderson County looked peaceful, sunlit, ignorant, neighbors mowing lawns, kids biking. I parked in front of the station, threw the car in park, and sat for a moment, hands trembling on the wheel. Then I grabbed the mic. "Dispatch, I'm back, and I'm done playing games." They cleared their throats over the air. "Understood, Turner. Ready for debrief?" I shut off the engine, exited the cruiser. Back at the station, Officer Lopez met me at the door. "You look like hell," she said. "Long story," I replied, voice low. "I'm writing a full account, and maybe transferring to day shift." She nodded slowly. Just take care of yourself. I forced a grin. Yeah, day shift's better. But as I walked to my office, I glanced at the darkened bay doors. That road was still out there, waiting, and I knew I'd be back. I spent the next morning digging through my notes, piecing together a timeline that made sense, although sense felt like a stretch. The report piled up. Row 05 tapping, unknown car, voice on radio, yet every time I revisited it, the facts slipped through my fingers like wet sand. By afternoon, I'd decided to grab a ride along with Sergeant Miller, a grizzled veteran who swore by daylight patrols. "Let me show you something," he'd said, eyes crinkling at the corners. He drove me out to the Old Mill Road, Route 219, a narrow stretch where abandoned factories lined one side and overgrown fields the other. Perfect place to spook yourself. We eased down that ribbon of asphalt around 15:30 hours. The sun loomed low, stretching shadows across cracked pavement. Miller clicked his flashlight into his holster and leaned back. "You ever hear of the Watcher?" he asked, voice smooth but low-key eerie. I shook my head. "Nope, never." He chuckled, but not exactly warmly. "Local legend. Guy rides out here, taps on cars at night, disappears before you can catch him. Cops call it a prank, trash talk on the wind. But the stories, people say they heard whispers through their radios, saw a shape in the fog." Miller tapped the dashboard for emphasis. "You sound familiar?" My throat tightened. I cleared it. "That our boy?" He shrugged. "Folks reckon so, or someone using his M.O. Either way, it's out here." I looked out the window at the rusted factory frames and tangled weeds. "Show me." We parked under an overpass, engine off. Miller flicked on his dash cam, hit record. "Let's do your midnight experiment," he said, passing me a small two-way speaker clipped to his belt. I pocketed it, slid out. Dust drifted in the dying light. I tapped the cruiser roof twice. Tap, pause, tap, then waited, breath churning. For a long beat, nothing. Then a soft rat-a-tat from the road behind us. Quick, deliberate. I spun around. The speaker in my hand crackled. Static at first, then a whisper so low I almost missed it. "Why are you here?" My jaw went dry. The words matched too closely. Tone matching my fear. I raised the speaker mic. "Who's there? Show yourself." The silence swallowed the air. Miller's flashlight beam swept. Nothing. He nudged me. "You feel that?" His voice was barely above a whisper. I nodded, hair prickling on my neck. The dusk settled, colder now. My radio buzzed to life on its own. Not dispatch frequency. Static, then a faint voice. Voice, VO, through radio. "End of the road, Jake." I looked at Miller. His face had gone pale. It calls you by name." I swallowed. "I've got one last idea." I fished out my phone, dialed a local trucker buddy, Kenny, who knew every back road. "Kenny, need you to meet me at Route 219 and 20. Bring the big spotlight." Miller raised an eyebrow. "Spotlight?" "Trust me," I replied, hoping I wasn't about to look like an idiot. 20 minutes later, headlights cut through the twilight as Kenny's rig rolled up. He hopped out, grin slipping when he saw my expression. "You sure about this?" "Point the spotlight down the fence line," I said. "Let's see who's hiding." Kenny flipped a switch. A powerful beam tore through the gloom, slicing the shadows into stark lines. We swept the fence. Old steel posts and barbed wire separating road from derelict factory. For a moment, nothing. Then, there. A crouched figure slipping behind a column. Too thin, too tall, silhouette shifting unnaturally. I radioed dispatch. 3 units inbound. Possible suspects sighted. Kenny roared the spotlight down again. The figure vanished. No sound of footsteps, like the ground itself swallowed them. Miller cursed under his breath. "You seeing this?" I nodded, heart pounding. I turned on my body cam spotlight. The beam danced over cracked concrete. Empty, but the air felt thick, like it pressed against my chest. Suddenly, the radio in my hand crackled. That voice, closer now. Voice, VO, through radio. "You can't run from me." I snapped the radio shut. My legs trembled. Miller grabbed my arm. "We're done here." I exhaled, nodding. "Yeah, let's get out." We piled into Miller's cruiser, doors slamming shut. As he pulled away, I stole a glance behind. The fence line was empty. No trace of footprints, no sign anything was there, just rust and broken glass. Back at the station, I replayed the body cam footage, frame by frame. Nothing. No figure, no movement. Yet the audio, pristine. The voice was real. I isolated the clip, sent it to forensics. They said it was just static and noise, no voice. My evidence? Nothing. I sat in the darkness of my office, a screen glow painting my face. I tapped my name into the search bar, watcher of Route 219, sifting through message boards, a handful of posts, heard tapping, saw a shape. My radio whispered my name. Mostly ignored, laughed off, but I knew. I knew what I heard and who it was. I closed my laptop, logged off, the memory of tapping, whispers, glimpsed silhouette. It all churned in my gut. I realized something. This wasn't a prankster, not any local kid or bored drifter. It was personal. The next morning, I woke up drenched in sweat, mind churning like a busted engine. I splashed cold water on my face, staring at the cracked mirror in the locker room. The Henderson County PD badge on my chest felt heavier than ever. I clipped on my radio, holstered my sidearm, and headed out. No coffee, no small talk. Today, I was hunting. By 08 hours, I was at the evidence vault. Forensics had no findings on that audio clip, claimed it was ambient noise, but I noticed something odd. The static pattern on the file matched my cruiser's radio signature precisely. In other words, whoever, or whatever, used my own radio to speak. No broadcast tower, no repeaters, direct, personal. I pocketed the USB and slipped into my cruiser. I drove out to the station's dispatch tower, wanting to check signal logs. The tower loomed over the county line, narrow metal spine, blinking red lights. Climbing felt reckless but necessary. I strapped on my Kevlar vest, pulled on gloves, and scaled the ladder. At the top, I opened the service panel, rows of cables blinking interfaces. I plugged in the USB, accessed the logs, scrolling back to midnight. There, an anomaly, a single transmission spike right at 00.05, originating from Unit 7 Alpha 3, my own car, and then more spikes at 0030 and again at 1545 when I was on Route 219. Someone piggybacked off my system. I logged off, heart drumming. As I descended, I realized something chilling. They had intimate access to me, my car, my radio, my routines. This wasn't random. It was calculated. Back on solid ground, I tapped the tower security keypad. "Sergeant Miller?" No answer. I radioed. "Miller, you around?" Silence. Weird. He usually picks up. I started back to my cruiser. On the gravel path, I felt watched. Crunch, crunch. Turning, I saw footprints leading toward the tree line. Too large for Miller. Too long. They disappeared under a rusted culvert. I crouched, aimed my maglite down the culvert. Dark tunnel of corrugated steel. No light. But from inside, a faint tapping. Tap, tap, tap. I raised my radio mic. "Come out with hands visible." Silence. Then a metallic whisper from the culvert's mouth. Voice, VO, through radio. "You're on my turf now." My jaw clenched. I radioed dispatch. "Need a team at Tower and Route 219 Culvert. Now." I backed away, keeping my gun hand free. Tina from dispatch lit up on the air. "Copy that. ETA 3 minutes." 3 minutes felt like centuries. I hugged the tower, flashlight out, scanning. The woods around me murmured an afternoon breeze, but the culvert was dead silent. Suddenly, headlights beamed through the trees. 2 cruisers racing in. They skidded to a halt. Miller jumped out, face pale, eyes wide. "Turner," he gasped. "Show me the logs," I said, voice tight. He nodded, leading me back inside the tower shack. We pulled up his laptop. Same anomalies. "I thought it was a glitch," he whispered, rubbing his temple. "Someone's messing with us," I said, fist slamming the desk. "Using our own equipment." Miller swallowed. "What do we do?" I met his gaze. "We bait him." Within the hour, we rigged my cruiser's radio to a recorder, set it to broadcast a live channel. Then we parked it at the entrance to the culvert on Route 219. Engines off, dash cam rolling. Miller and I hid behind a fallen log 50 yards away, radios silent. Night fell, stars overhead, but the tree line thick and dark. Through the gloom, we heard it. Tap, tap, tap. The car roof, clear as day. We crept forward, flashlights ready. Miller tapped the trunk twice. Tap, pause, tap. We waited. Seconds ticked by. Then, on the radio speaker inside the cruiser, a whisper. Voice, VO, through radio. "You set the stage, Jake." That was it. We sprinted in, guns drawn, toward the car. Shadows flickered. I yanked open the door. Empty. But the recorder was still playing, stuck on that last line. A soft thud behind me. I spun. Miller was down, struck from behind by something heavy. I shouted, fired a warning shot into the darkness. My beam caught a figure melting into the woods. Too tall, too swift. I dropped to Miller's side. He groaned, clutching his side. I radioed for EMS, then crawled toward my cruiser, grabbed the recorder. It repeated the whisper. "You set the stage, Jake." I pressed my back against the door, flashlight shaking in my free hand. The woods were silent, except for my partner's shallow breaths and that damned recorder playing on loop. I waited until sirens shattered the stillness. Backup arrived, lights painting the culvert in red and blue. The figure never emerged. They found footprints, enormous 6-inch wide boot prints, not matching any department gear. They led into the woods and vanished. Back at the station, Miller was patched up. He slumped in the briefing room listening to the recorder. I sat beside him replaying the whisper one more time. Miller looked at me, voice hoarse. "You're not just hunting him, are you?" I stared at the speaker, still murmuring. "He's hunting me." I couldn't shake the chill, even when I sunk into my worn leather chair in the briefing room. The recorder sat on the conference table, its red light blinking like a heartbeat. That whispered line, "You set the stage, Jake," kept replaying in my skull. Sergeant Miller leaned back, arms crossed, nursing a paper cup of lukewarm coffee. "We've got to figure out his pattern," he muttered. "Times, places, how he's staying one step ahead." I tapped my pen against the table. "He's using our own radios, piggybacking signals. Could be encryption, too, scrambled to hide his identity." Miller nodded slowly. "Meanwhile, the media's all over it. Phantom of Henderson County. They want interviews, footage." He waved a hand. "We need a public statement." I exhaled. "Fine, I'll go on camera, but I say 2 words. Under investigation. End of statement. He smirked. Good. Keep 'em hungry for answers. That afternoon, the PD's press room buzzed. Reporters, cameras, bright lights. I stood at the podium, badge gleaming, heart thumping. They fired questions. Officer Turner, is this a serial prankster? Are citizens safe on rural highways? Any suspects in custody? I kept it brief. Our department is working diligently. We have no current leads to share. We urge anyone with information to contact dispatch, that is all. Afterward, I retreated to my office. Closed the door. Checked the recorder one more time. It was still looping the whisper. I pressed stop and stowed it in an evidence bag. I needed fresh eyes. So, late that evening, I met with tech specialist Kapoor in the cyber lab. Rows of monitors glowed in the blue light. Kapoor, young and intense, ran the audio through advanced filters. I watched waveforms shrink and expand. He paused, zoomed in on a segment. Here, he said, pointing. Background frequency matches a low-power local repeater, but with your cruiser's exact signature modulating it. He adjusted levels. He's reverse engineering your device, likely inside knowledge. I clenched my jaw. So, insider, or someone who can break into our tech vault. Kapoor frowned. But you said Miller had secure access that night? I hesitated. He climbed the dispatch tower, but he went alone. Could have been compromised. Kapoor scribbled notes. We'll need physical logs, swipe cards, camera footage from the vault. Cross-reference them. I nodded. I'll get it. By midnight, I was back at headquarters, crossing the corridors to the secure area. Badge swipe, pin entry, door hissed open. The tech vault, rows of servers, radio gear, routers. I checked the access logs. Miller's entry at 1:15, then mine at 02:20. No other swipes. I shot off an email to Internal Affairs. Then, something caught my eye. On a bench, next to the spare radio units, lay a single black glove. Leather, size large. I picked it up. No prints. Miller's gloves are tan Nomex. Mine are black, but thicker. This one was sleek, cheaper. My heart sped. I slipped it into an evidence bag, locked the door behind me. The next morning, I confronted Miller in the roll call room. He was pinning his badge onto his uniform, looking tired. Sergeant, we need to talk. I slid the bag across the desk. He looked down, face ashen. Where'd you find that? In the tech vault. I watched him carefully. Care to explain? He ran a hand through his graying hair. I thought I lost it on Route 219, near that culvert. His voice cracked. I went back to look, but it wasn't there. You didn't tell me, I said quietly. Why? He swallowed. I was embarrassed. I didn't want to admit I was reckless. I frowned. You were alone on that tower, Miller. Did you see anything? He hesitated, then closed his eyes. I saw someone, tall, lean, wearing that glove. He opened his eyes, looking at the bag. I tried to grab him. He disappeared into the shadows. I threw the glove, thought maybe I hit something. I processed. So that's where it went. He nodded. I was going to tell you, but after I got hurt, I panicked. I exhaled. This is bigger than us, sir. He's playing chess, and we're the pawns. Miller leaned forward, voice low. Then let's take back the board. Together, we laid out a plan. Rotate patrols on key routes, secure tech vault with two-person rule, swap radio frequencies randomly, deploy undercover units posing as solo patrols, bait for him to strike again. That evening, just before dusk, I posted in the department group chat, Team, be extra vigilant tonight. Stick in pairs, no solo runs on HWY 47 or RT 219. If you hear anything unusual, tapping, voices, call it in immediately. Do not engage alone." I hit send, then stared at my reflection in the dark monitor. He was watching, waiting, and now we were making moves. The stage was set for the next encounter, and this time I wasn't going to be alone. The night air had a brittle edge when I stepped out of the station alongside Sergeant Miller. Our patrol cars idled under the dull glow of the street lamps. 2 identical cruisers, lights off, engines warm. This time, we weren't alone. Officer Davis and Rookie Martinez rode shotgun, nervous but alert. I checked my watch, 21:15 hours, prime window for our bait operation on Highway 47 and Route 219. "Remember," I said, low voice, "we stick to the plan, no heroics. If you hear a tap, stay put. Call it in. We swarm." Miller gave me a curt nod while Davis cracked his knuckles. Martinez swallowed hard, eyes darting between us. Good. Adrenaline is a sharp tool. We split up. Miller and Davis took Highway 47 while Martinez and I headed to Route 219. My cruiser rolled toward that battered wooden sign. Henderson County faded to ghostly white. Martinez tapped the dashboard nervously. "Sir, it's kind of creepy out here." I smiled grimly. That's the point. I flicked on the dash cam and hit record. Then, silence. The road ahead draped in shadows, trees pressing in like spectators. We parked 50 yards from the culvert entrance, lights off. I held up my hand, silent signal. Martinez shut off the engine. Darkness swallowed us. Minutes passed. We spoke only in whispers. Martinez's breath panted in the cabin. I checked my sidearm. No safety catch, finger hovering just above. Suddenly, a soft rap on the roof. Tap, tap, tap. Martinez froze, hands white-knuckled. I slid out of the cruiser, flashlight and radio gripped tight. "Stay here," I hissed. He nodded, jaw clenched. I crept toward the hood, each step cautious. Tap, tap. Then, from the trunk, tap, once. I knelt, shone my light under the lip. Nothing. I reached for the trunk latch. A sharp whisper crackled through my radio. "You're next, Turner." My blood turned to ice. I dropped the trunk, so if someone climbed in, they'd be trapped. But it snapped open clean. Empty. My heart thundered. I tapped my mic. "Unit 7 Alpha 3, trunk clear. No sign of entry." No response. Then a sudden clatter from the tree line right beside us. A fallen branch, a footstep. I spun, beam slicing into the darkness. Nothing but trees. I pressed forward toward the woods. "Sir, you coming?" Martinez's voice trembled from the cruiser. I hesitated. Our rule: don't chase into the woods alone. But something in me snapped. Guilt, fear, anger, it doesn't matter. I took 2 steps, then stopped. The woods exhaled. No sound but the night wind. I radioed, "Back off, Martinez, stand by." Then clicked the mic off. I edged closer to the trees, flashlight low. My pulse echoed loud in my ears. Then another tap, this time from the driver's door of the cruiser. Tap. Pause. Tap. It matched my heartbeat. I dove back to the car, yanked the door open, and Martinez, stood there, face pale. They're everywhere," he stammered. I shook him. "What? Who?" He pointed to the passenger window. I shone the beam there. In the fogged glass, a shadow flickered behind me, tall, lean. I spun around. Nothing. My ears caught distant sirens, Miller and Davis rushing in. I grabbed Martinez by the shoulder. "Get in, now." We piled into the cruiser. I slammed the door and barked into the mic. "Code red, Route 219 culvert. Possible suspect, units converge." Martinez gunned the engine. Tires spat gravel as we peeled out, headlights off, using only moonlight. My earpiece crackled. "This is Miller. I got eyes on him, just past mile marker 12. He's moving fast, heading north into the woods." I cursed under my breath. On R6, then to Martinez. Follow his taillights, no slamming brakes. We plunged into the night, headlights off, using night vision goggles. My heart pounded so hard I thought they'd register like sonar. Branches whipped past. The cruiser slid over potholes. Then, up ahead, Miller's patrol lights, blue and red, wavered through the trees. I skidded in behind, cut in the engine. 2 cruisers sat askew on the shoulder, doors open. We scrambled out, weapons drawn. The forest loomed like a cathedral of shadows. Miller pointed. There, tracks. Deep boot prints dug into the soft earth. Too big for any of us, they led into dense underbrush. The whisper came through the radio, distorted but unmistakable. "You can't catch me." We advanced as a unit, Miller leading, me on his flank, Martinez and Davis covering rear. The prints wove between trees, breaking only at a shallow stream. Water glinted like quicksilver. We stopped at the bank, footprints on both sides. Then, a violent splash downstream as though someone crossed. I aimed my light. Over the water, branches snapped, and I caught a glimpse. A tall figure, torso illuminated for a heartbeat before it vanished into darkness. "After him!" I shouted. We plunged into the cold stream, water seeping into boots, chilling bones. On the far bank, footprints disappeared into thick ferns. I charged forward, tripping over undergrowth, heart in my throat. Davis called out, "He's ahead, behind that fallen oak." We fanned out, flashes of torchlight, muzzle ready. I reached the oak, yanked back a curtain of vines. Nothing, just hollow trunk and leaf litter. Then, cold metal at my back. A breath tickled my ear, and a voice low enough to freeze marrow. "Checkmate, Jake." I whipped around, saw only the last flicker of a black glove disappearing behind the tree. I fired a warning shot into the canopy. Branches rained down. Silence. I radioed, "Suspect evaded, need full perimeter lockdown." Sirens pulsed as more units poured in, lights strobed among pines. We combed the grid until dawn. No suspect. Only the echo of his laugh lingering in the undergrowth. Back at the station, we laid out the footprints on the board. 2 large, oddly shaped, with what looked like metal studs embedded. Not standard issue. No match in the database. Miller looked at me, exhaustion etched on his face. He's not human. I met his gaze. No, but he's all too real. I sank into my chair, hands trembling. The board of maps, prints, radio spikes stared back. The pieces were scattered, but one thing was painfully clear. The game had only just begun. Daylight did little to soothe the raw ache behind my eyes. I arrived at the precinct before dawn, coffee in hand, only to find Sergeant Miller already pacing outside the briefing room. His uniform was crisp, but his expression was anything but. "Found something," he said without preamble, sliding a worn file folder across the table. Inside, personnel records for a deputy named Frank Holloway. Served here in Henderson County 20 years ago, then mysteriously resigned. No discharge, no transfer. Just gone. I flipped through the pages. Holloway's file was spotless. Commendations, no complaints. But there was a note. He oversaw radio maintenance in 05 or 07, the same era the department upgraded every cruiser's comm system. "You think he's our guy?" I asked. Miller shook his head. "Could be a copycat, or someone who's learned from him." He tapped the printouts from our latest crime scene. those massive boot prints. Look at these. They match the old specs for equipment techs. Steel-toed maintenance boots, 6th size, custom sole pattern. I frowned. Specs phased out 10 years ago. Exactly, Miller said. Only someone with direct access to old gear would have them, or someone who's got the blueprint. He leaned back. I ran Holloway's last known address, abandoned farmhouse off County Road 32. Nobody's lived there for years. I felt a spark of adrenaline. Let's go. We pulled up to the farmhouse just as the sun bled red across the horizon. The place sagged under rot. A sagging porch, windows boarded, paint peeled in angry curls. My cruiser's headlights cut through the morning haze as Miller and I stepped onto the cracked driveway. I clicked off the engine, and we approached cautiously, weapons drawn. The door was hanging ajar, rusted hinges groaning as a breeze stirred the dead grass. Inside, the house smelled of mildew and nostalgia, a sharp sting of something long forgotten. Room by room, we swept flashlight beams across rusted tools, stacks of dusty radio parts, a lone sheriff's hat perched on a beam. Then, footprints. My heart knocked in my chest. Boot imprints in a pool of dried mud leading down the hallway. I followed, Miller close on my heels. In the back room, what I saw made my breath catch. A wall plastered with diagrams, radio schematics, and crime scene photos of our own patrol cars. At the center, highlighted in red, was my badge number. Below it, a crudely drawn map of Henderson County with Highway 47 and Route 219 circled. Pins marked points 0005, 0030, 2115. All the times I'd been tapped. Holy, I whispered. Miller moved to a small table by the window. On it lay a stack of worn cassette tapes labeled in shaky handwriting, Turner Shift 07, Dojo 05, Turner Shift 13, 2115, and so on. He inserted one into a handheld player. Static crackled, then my own voice, recorded that night, saying, Unit 7 Alpha 3, trunk clear. Then, faint tapping and that familiar whisper, voice, VO, cassette. You're next, Turner. I swallowed hard. He's been here, listening. Miller traced a finger on the map, and he knew every move. Suddenly, the boards around us rattled, like a distant pounding. We exchanged glances. He's here, I said. Bang. The front door slammed shut. Then, bang. Windows shook. The farmhouse groaned like it was alive. I radioed, Dispatch, this is Turner. We need units at Holloway's house now. No answer. My radio was dead. I tried Miller's, static, dead. A low voice echoed through the house, too loud to be on tape. Voice, OS. Endgame, Jake. The floorboards creaked above us. I hugged Miller's arm. Trap. We moved toward the back exit, footsteps following, soft, deliberate. I yanked open the door. Outside, nothing but tall corn stalks rustling in the breeze. 2 cruisers swept past on the road, but neither slowed. They didn't see us. Miller whispered, We need to get to town. Call backup on cell. I tapped my pocket. No signal. Out here, dead zone. We slipped into the cornfield, flashlight beams dancing between stalks. Each step sank into loose soil. The house loomed behind us, doors and windows rattling with unseen force. A silhouette appeared at the doorway, tall, thin, glowing mask of moonlight outlining his frame. He raised an arm and pointed. Voice, OS, from afar. Checkmate. He dissolved back into the shadows, disappearing behind the farmhouse. The night swallowed him. Miller patted me on the shoulder. We stick together, head for the highway. We'll flag down a civilian. I nodded, heart hammering. We raced through the stalks, breath loud in our ears, until we burst onto County Road 32. No traffic, no lights, just dark asphalt stretching toward Henderson. But as we reached the road's edge, I heard a tapping, tap, 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 coming from behind. I spun. There, at the cornfield's edge, stood the figure, boots planted firmly in the dirt. His shadow stretched long across the road, pointing toward us. I whispered, "Right in the open." He tilted his head. No words, just that slow, mocking tap. I gripped Miller's arm. "Run." We sprinted to the cruiser, yanked open the door. Miller fired the engine. As we peeled out, I looked back once more. The farmhouse was gone. No building, no figure. Just endless fields under an empty sky. On the dashboard, my phone buzzed. One bar of signal. A text from dispatch. "All units searching Holloway's residence. No sign of Turner and Miller. Stay safe." I exhaled, shoulders slack. He's got us from both sides. Miller nodded, eyes fixed on the road ahead. Then we keep moving. I glanced at the dark field slipping past. The board in my mind shifted. The next move, I had to lure him into daylight, where shadows hold no refuge. But first, we needed to survive the night. The sun was crawling up the horizon when we rolled back into Henderson County, battered and half blinded by exhaustion. My cruiser's engine ticked as it cooled. The dashboard was littered with map scraps, radio parts, and that damned recorder. I shoved it all into an evidence locker, sealed, tagged, untouchable for now. Sergeant Miller and I sat in the briefing room, heads bent over steaming cups of coffee that tasted like ash and regret. The board by the whiteboard was a war map of pinpoints and red yarn. Highway 47, Route 219, Deputy Holloway's farmhouse, the dispatch tower, the culvert entrance, every place he'd struck, every time he'd called my name. "Today," I said, voice raw, "we face him in the light." I tapped a fresh sheet of paper pinned at the center. Operation Daybreak. The plan was simple. Tan, daylight uniforms, high-visibility vests, unmarked SUVs parked conspicuously along your typical haunts. No radios on the standard channels, only encrypted direct comms we rotate every hour. Cameras on tripods pointing down lonely shoulders of asphalt, ice cream trucks on loop, sprinklers in motion, the sun glare messing with shadows so there's nowhere to hide. We'd flush him out. Miller nodded, eyes steely. "And if he doesn't show, then we've got enough data to track his patterns, predict his next move." I flipped through logs, radio spikes at 0005, 0030, 2115, boot prints at every station breach, the glove left at the vault. He can shadow us no longer. We deployed the team, 8 officers in total, along 3 sectors. The Old Mill Road, County Road 32, and that stretch of decomposed granite leading to the farmhouse. Surveillance drones hovered overhead, their lenses catching every flicker of movement. My heart hammered with morning adrenaline. No fog, no whispering trees, just the relentless clarity of daylight. At 10:17 a.m. on Route 219, my partner Martinez spotted him, or rather, his silhouette against the cornfield's edge, tall, lean, black gloves gleaming in the sun. He met our gaze, tipped back his head, and tapped 3 times on the abandoned barn's rusted siding. Tap, 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 distinct rhythm. Then he raised a hand, slow, deliberate, a gesture of invitation, and for the first time I saw his face, not a mask but hollow cheeks and eyes like chipped obsidian, features half hidden by stubble and sunburned skin. He looked exhausted, worn, like he'd been living in our shadows for decades. I gripped my Glock, knuckles white. Miller's voice crackled through my earpiece. "Hold." Then, He's not armed, or he only has one weapon. 3 more taps, this time from the underside of the barn's porch. Tap, tap, tap. Our tripwire cameras lit up, capturing every echo. Surveillance units closed in, blocked both ends of the road. I approached cautiously, boots crunching on gravel. He didn't run. He just watched, hands in his pockets. I holstered my gun, stepped forward. "Frank Holloway?" I asked, voice level. He nodded, eyes fixed on mine. "You don't understand," he said, his voice the same whisper that haunted my radio. "I had to make you see." I stayed 5 feet away. "See what?" He sighed, as though carrying the weight of every night shift on his back. "The emptiness out here, the way you're all alone, listening to ghosts. I tapped your radio because no one ever listens anymore." He paused. "I wanted you to feel it." It hit me. This wasn't just a cat and mouse. It was a plea. A broken cop who'd slipped through the cracks, desperate to be heard. Miller arrived, weapon lowered but ready. "Turner, get back up here," he murmured. I didn't cuff Holloway. Instead, I lowered my voice. "We can help, but you have to stand down." He looked at me, sun glinting off his weary eyes. He dropped his head, and the barn went quiet. The tapping stopped. Behind me, officers secured the perimeter. Medical and mental health teams arrived. Holloway sat, hands behind his back, not in cuffs but in gentle grips, while I read him his rides. As they led him away, I glanced back at the barn. No more taps, no more whispers, just the morning breeze tangling through rusted metal. Later, at dusk, I drove Highway 47 alone. No fog, no tapping, just the steady hum of tires on asphalt. I checked my rearview mirror. Empty. Finally empty. Operation Daybreak was over. The shadows retreated with the sunrise, and though I know the darkness never truly leaves, today, at least, I heard nothing but my own heartbeat, and that was enough.